This is a very different video than the normal content I usually make, but I've been known to talk about TV shows every now and then in the past, so I figured I'd break away from my normal music content to talk about a show that I love, Seinfeld. I grew up watching this show in the late 90s, not knowing many of the jokes, seeing as I was a child then, but then when I became a teenager and they started releasing all of these DVD box sets that everyone seemed to own. In fact, I challenge you, look around your house right now. You've got to have at least one of these. Anyway, after rewatching the show as a teenager, I learned to appreciate the brilliance and subversiveness of this show. But after rewatching the series several times over the years, I realized just how ridiculous some of the plot points were, especially towards the end of the show. In this video, I'd like to break down some of the absurdly dumb plots that were featured on Seinfeld. Stick around, this is Dancing with Ghosts. For this video, I'll pretty much just be focusing on seasons 8 and 9, the 2 seasons after Larry David left the show. Much of the soul of Seinfeld was Larry David, so it makes sense that when he left, the soul of the show kind of left with it, which can be seen by just how ridiculous some of these storylines are going forward. The Butter Shave. In the first episode of season 9, all of the guys grow mustaches. I don't know why. They decide it was a bad idea and shave them off. Kramer realizes that using butter instead of shaving cream gives him a smoother feel. He starts sunbathing, in fact, using butter as well, which apparently gives him an aroma that portly friend Newman just can't resist. Newman starts fantasizing about eating Kramer. And yes, a writer for Seinfeld actually pitched this idea. They put it on the show. I can't help but to think if Larry David were still on the show at this point, that writer would have been fired, but by season 9, the show was in outer space with the absurdity and nowhere near the relatable plots that were found in earlier seasons. The Voice. Let me just read you Jerry's plot point from this episode. It kind of says it all. Jerry is dating a woman named Claire. Behind her back, Jerry jokes that her stomach has a voice, which he lampoons by saying, "Hello!" Jerry tells Claire about the voice. Offended, she leaves him. She says she can only get back together if he agrees to never do the voice again. Jerry agonizes and decides he prefers the voice. However, all his friends say that they have grown tired of the voice. He talks to Claire and agrees to stop doing the voice.
This girl Claire I'm seeing?
Yeah?
Well, he and I started joking that when she falls asleep, her stomach stays awake all night and talks to me.
How's he talking?
Well, the belly button's like a mouth. I'm bored. Talk to me.
What? What is this? Like, you know, anyone who thought this show should have gone for a 10th season is delirious, right? Like, I will admit the finality was disappointing and it should have been executed better, but I don't think they had any more juice left in this show for a 10th season. The Merv Griffin Show. Even though I really do enjoy this episode and I think it's really funny, the plot of Kramer finding the set pieces of an old talk show in a dumpster and then somehow getting them into his small apartment and reconstructing the set for the Merv Griffin Show, a show that I'm assuming was on TV way before I was born, it's just super absurd and kind of dumb. Like, I can't stress how relatable this show was in its earlier seasons. This show addressed the minutia of everyday life in a way that no other show had done before. And then by season 9, Kramer's apartment is now the set of an old talk show where he pretends to be the host. The Chicken Roaster. In this episode, a Kenny Rogers chicken roaster restaurant is opened up right outside Kramer's apartment. Apparently, this was a rotisserie chicken franchise in the 90s, but we never had one where I lived, so I just thought this was something that they made up for the show. But no, it was a real thing at one point, and apparently still is a real thing somewhere in Asia. In this episode, the neon sign for the restaurant light was right outside of Kramer's apartment window and generated a very bright red glow in his bedroom, which left him unable to sleep. Upon hearing this, Jerry agrees to switch apartments with Kramer, but now Jerry is unable to sleep. After a while, Jerry starts acting like Kramer, and Kramer starts acting like Jerry, as if their apartments were what made them who they were. There is a particularly cringy scene where you see Jerry Seinfeld, the actor, attempt to play Kramer's character, and you get to see just how bad of an actor Jerry is when playing a character that isn't based on himself.
You know my friend Bob Sacramento?
I thought he was Kramer's friend.
Well, he called last night about 3 a.m. and we got to talking. He sells Russian hats down at Battery Park. $40.
$40? Are they sable?
No, but the difference is negligible.
Again, we have left planet Earth at this point in the series, and it's nowhere near the relatable sitcom it had started out as. The Cigar Store Indian. This episode comes from season 5 of the show and is dumb for another reason. It's seemingly edgy and cool now to hate on Seinfeld and downplay its merits. I've heard phrases such as, "It's not even funny," or "It's offensive." Now, normally I'd write that off as a bunch of oversensitive Gen Z kids, but this particular episode is one that would never get made nowadays. Jerry's story plot in this episode is that he gifts Elaine a cigar store Indian to show just how generous of a guy he is in an attempt to impress Elaine's friend whom he likes. Now, I had to look this up. Apparently, these cigar store Indians were used in many storefronts to draw in customers, but especially tobacco shops because Native Americans had been associated with tobacco, seeing as they introduced tobacco to the Europeans when they came to America. Needless to say, the cigar store Indian is seen as insensitive and offensive today, and even back then too, probably, but that was just when people could laugh at that shit and not get overly offended. But man, this episode just goes above and beyond with the Native American stereotypes. Again, you could get away with a lot more in the 90s than you ever could as far as this type of humor is concerned. But looking back now, it hasn't aged the best. The Wink. From season 7, the George plot of this episode is absurdly stupid. Jerry is eating a grapefruit and the juice gets in George's eye, causing him to wink at random times. This causes confusion as George will tell something to someone and then wink at them as if to say, "Just kidding," which causes all kinds of issues. Kramer ends up selling an autographed birthday card signed by all the New York Yankees because of the wink. George also infers to his boss that one of his co-workers is slacking on the job because of the wink. It's just such a dumb premise. I get the whole, oh, he has something in his eye and now it's getting him into all these zany situations. But the concept is so stupid. Like, seriously, that whole eye irritation thing would have lasted all of 15 minutes and you wouldn't wink. Your eye would just get red and irritated. Again, just another example of this show going from waiting for a table in a Chinese restaurant in real time, something which anyone can relate to having grapefruit juice squirted in your eye, which makes you involuntarily wink at people. The writers were literally losing the plot by the end of this series. So those were just a few of the dumb Seinfeld plots that came to mind. I could have come up with more, but these, in my mind, just kind of stood out as the dumbest, just in my opinion. It's still one of my favorite shows of all time, but I just thought this would be a fun video to make. What about you? What are some of your least favorites or favorite plots in Seinfeld? After Larry David left the show, things got more and more absurd to where the show about nothing became the show about bizarre shit that would never happen in real life. Anyway, until next time, enjoy the rest of your night. Remember to comment, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and all that crap that you've been told ad infinitum by every other YouTuber in the world. I'm Josh Cannon. Bye.